Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
What? 1960 who? 1960 what? 1960 who? 19. Hey, the Motor City is burning. That ain't right. 1960 what? 1960 who? 1960 what? 1960 who? 19. Hey, the Motor City is burning, y'all. That ain't right. There was a man, voice of a people, standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. Shots rang out. Yes, it was a gun. He was the only one to fall down, y'all. That ain't right. Then his people scream, ain't no need for sunlight, ain't no need for moonlight, ain't no need for street light, just burning real bright. Some folks say we gon' fight, 'cause this here thing just ain't right. 1960 what? 1960 who? 1960 what? 1960 who? 19. Hey, the Motor City is burning, y'all. Ooh, the Motor City is burning, y'all. Great God Almighty, the Motor City is burning. Ooh, it's burning. Young man coming out of a liquor store with 3 pieces of black licorice in his hand, y'all. Mr. Policeman thought it was a gun, thought it was the one, shot him down, y'all. That ain't right. Then his mama screamed, ain't no need for sunlight, ain't no need for moonlight, ain't no need for street light, just burning real bright. Some folks say we gon' fight, 'cause this here thing just ain't right. 1960 what? 1960 who? 1960 what? 1960 who? 19. Hey, the Motor City's burning. Great God Almighty is, great God Almighty is burning. You can't put out the fire 'cause it's burning.
It is Gregory Porter, and that is how we open up the show this afternoon with the multi-award winning artist, internationally recognized for his phenomenal contribution to the landscape of jazz music, and also for redefining what new age jazz is and introducing it to a whole new audience. 1960 What has become one of his more seminal pieces of work, coming from his 2010 album Water, two-time award Grammy winner for Best Jazz Vocal, both in 2014 as well as 2017, and of course notoriously known for his iconic Kangol hat, which he says oftentimes gets him recognized even in spaces where he'd rather be blending off in the background. It actually started as, from what I understand from conversations that he's had with various media across the world, it started on the back of him having some surgery, and then deciding, obviously for recovery and protective reasoning, that the hat must be worn to some degree, as well as the scarf, the sort of balaclava scarf that surrounds his face. He's got some scarring on the face on the back of those surgeries, but now it's just become a very big part of who Gregory Porter is. You can't separate the iconic Kangol hat and the facial balaclava from the man himself. Come rain, shine, South African summer, wherever he's performing, that's how you are going to see him. That is how we open up the show this afternoon. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, leading the conversation on SAfm. It is Youth Day, June 16, and of course in celebration and in honor of this generation that is driving a large part of the conversation and concerns in South Africa, we decided here at SAfm that let us put our money where our mouths are and invite a few and have them come through to the respective shows of their choices to come and present the agenda for the day. And of course, we got to meet them briefly just the other day on the phone. But today they are here with me and they've set the agenda. We've got so much coming up. My co-hosts that are going to be joining me are Nkaiseng Mukweli, who's in the building. And of course, we've got Uboy Tumelo Liboko, who's also here. She was here the other day to say hello. Good afternoon, ladies.
Hi,
afternoon. They are so well mannered, but these are grown youth, by the way, that are in studio. We they're not 16, 17-year-old adolescent youth.
Are you youth and dad?
No, I am youth.
Oh, are you youth and dad?
There are grown youth that are joining us, professionals in their own right, South Africans, participating citizens, and like I said, they have set the agenda. And by way of what's coming up on the show today, we're looking at ethical dilemma in the first half of the show, choosing to do right even when the odds are against you. And then we are asking, what legacy will the current youth of South Africa leave behind? Also coming up later on in the show, we're looking at social expectations by way of marriage in the modern context. I laugh because every time we have a conversation that challenges the norm of tradition or how we understand unionship, the older generation always comes out swinging strong, saying, what is wrong with you people trying to change everything all the time? So that conversation is coming up, and we end things off by asking the question, should there be a maximum age limit to those who use social media? They really are being shady today. It's their agenda. They set it up, not me. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and get into the first topic of conversation.
Empower yourself for the workplace with Stadio. You can work while you study with one of Africa's leading distance learning experts, or study full-time at one of our 6 state-of-the-art campuses. With more than 50 degrees, diplomas and higher certificates, for Stadio a qualification isn't just a qualification. It's more South Africans equipped, empowered and employed. Join a higher education institution that's industry-aligned and affordable. Applications for our second semester are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za to apply today. Stadio is a registered and accredited higher education provider.
Not sure if it's just flu, COVID, or something else? Good news, you can still get your COVID jab or booster this winter for added protection. And while you're at it, get your flu jab and health check too. Remember, COVID is still with us. Call the National Health Hotline on 0800 029 999. That's 0800 029 999 or WhatsApp help to 0600 123 456.
Well done. You have managed to conquer your Monday. So, how about you reward yourself with our weekday movies? Sink into the couch with the family and catch What's Love Got to Do with It? Saturday Church, Jingle Bells, and Throwback Christmas. Every Monday at 10 p.m. only on SABC2.
South Africa, Happy Youth Day on SAfm. With government drawing more young people into the economy, we celebrate Youth Month under this year's theme of accelerating youth economic emancipation for a sustainable future. SAfm, leading the conversation this Youth Day. SAfm Youth Day TakeOver.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, and of course, I'm not alone today. It is Youth Day, so I guess every time I say it is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, and
Thing. And Vitumelo.
But I feel as if, I didn't just say Bridget, I said Bridget Masinga.
Yes, Bridget Masinga.
Brand yourself completely, ladies.
Mokwele. And Vitumelo Leboko.
Fabulous stuff. There we go. Broadcasting 101 coming to you live on air. We're also streaming, by the way, today's broadcast on our social media pages. You can go over to Facebook to have a look at what the ladies look like and in general how studio works. It's beautiful to be back in the studio space and have cameras as well simultaneously. I love it when the two mediums come together. So, all right. So by way of first conversation, this one belongs to you, Ngaiseng.
Yes.
Right. We are looking at ethical dilemmas. Choosing to do right even when the odds are against you.
Yes, growing up in this society, especially South Africa, because that's only my context that I can reference to, we see a lot of youth who are choosing the wrong way to get money quick or to advance quickly in life. So the reason I chose this topic is, do we still have the same morals that were instilled in us while growing up? Do we choose to do right even though our friends are saying, actually, let's just do something that's wrong? With the economy that is constantly going sideways, we see crime that is increasing in our communities. And what type of communities will we have at the end of the day if the youth that is growing up right now is constantly choosing the wrong thing to do?
Oh, very interesting. I mean, yeah, very, very interesting. And I think it begs the question, that one should ask, in a South African context then, if we are looking at ethical dilemmas and looking whether or not are we erring on the right side of the moral compass, my first jump question to that, and I don't know what your first jump question to that would be, mine would definitely be, as South Africans over the decades, through the actions of our leaders and politicians and, people we hold in position of authority and influence, have we then allowed for a culture of moral decay to embed so deep that we can't see other options?
That is also very true, because we see the leaders that are currently in power are not choosing to do the right thing. And we could actually say this is why we're here as South Africa. You see, as I'm not going to go deep into the politics because I'm not a political analyst, but you see us not standing for what is right. We're not saying this is the side that we choose as South Africa. And how do we then expect the youth to say, I choose to do what is right, because that is what will grow my community, that is what will grow my the place that I live within. So yeah, you're right.
Well, I don't like to be right. 086 0002032 is the number that you can call us on, or 0614104107. Alternatively, you can find us on social media at SAfm Radio, hashtag SAfm The Full Circle. If you are listening to us on this public holiday, we're talking ethical dilemmas by way of our first conversation with Nkaiseng Mukweli. And of course, she is going to be driving this conversation. Emphasis on driving this conversation.
I will do that.
Yes, you
I will
shall
do that.
And the floor is yours.
Yes. So looking at the world that we are growing up in, I think that we did touch on it, on the youth that is currently growing in a society who are constantly not doing right. How do we then motivate them to do right? How do we choose to do right even when the odds are against you? How do we do right in the midst of increased unemployment? How do we give the youth the motivation to choose what is right? And I think it goes back to what Bridget said. How do we then tell the leaders that are leading us that actually corruption is not right? You are distorting the economy. You are leading the youth into the wrong direction. Who should be our mouthpiece for morally right? How do we hold morally right conversations in the public spaces that we are in?
Yeah.
I think, gosh, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I suppose there is also the question, is morality subjective, right? And what is right? What is wrong? Why is it right to you? And we would need to then define that first in terms before we then pose the question as to how do we even motivate young people to do right? Because for somebody who has lived in a social background that is impoverished, it's very difficult for them to say that stealing is not right. That for them, feeding their family is right. So we need to then draw the line or create parameters in terms of what is it subjective, or do we have a standard right or wrong when it comes to moralities?
I think this is a good part for us to jump in. Our guest who's on the line, activist Ntiki J. Skosana. How are you doing, Ntiki?
Hi, I'm doing very well, Bridget. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think, Nkaiseng has introduced a very interesting topic, by way of our ethical dilemmas societally. And I think Boitumelo then just add a spanner on the works by asking the question, well, what's right to you might necessarily not be right to me.
Yes, I really do believe what Melo just introduced is actually a very good question, because I think both things can exist simultaneously, right? Because if we look at, for example, the sort of policies our leaders introduce, there are policies that free and give rights to certain people who others might believe are morally reprehensible people. For example, the LGBTQI plus community, right? Many people believe that there isn't anything correct about that and it's a lifestyle that's chosen, but then we've got to look at the realities that these are human beings that exist within the society who deserve rights just like every other person. And so morality is a big discussion in our country, particularly because our country is quite a conservative one. And a lot of times the smallest idea of what is right can be challenged so violently. I often look at our history with xenophobic attacks, for example. A lot of times people are attacked, and that's because people are frustrated with a lot of systemic failures in our own country, and they look at the low-hanging fruit as the threat, and so they attack it. And I think when we talk about morality, it is a very, I think, subjective point of view, but there are objective truths, like everybody agrees murder is wrong. There's never anything right about murder, but then there's also those murky waters whereby some people might think polygamy is wrong, or they think it's right, or whatever they may believe. And I absolutely love the topics that have been introduced by my fellow young grown youth. I'm looking forward to listening to more of the conversation.
Yeah. Ntiki, I want to just ask you a question on what do you you spoke about different aspects of morality. You talked about the LGBTQ LGBTQ,
LGBTQI plus.
Yes, you spoke about them, and you spoke about polygamy, and that is, I guess, it's another topic when it comes to morality and how we treat them as a society, because what they currently doing is not infringing any wrong on any person. They are just standing to what they believe is right for them. And when it comes to what we see happening in the country, when we talk about corruption, what the leaders are proudly doing in the public, that is not right. And that is something that we as the youth should stand up and say, what you're doing is going to be a ripple effect to us, because we're going to grow up in a society where we think corruption is okay. Kids are going to grow up in a society where
the thing is, we are inheriting a problematic system. Oh no.
Nsiki?
Hello.
Yes, you're still here. Yes.
Hi, I'm still here. I think I had just had a bit of an issue. We are going to be inheriting a problematic system, because I think a lot of the issues that exist today, like corruption and like these other, not just morally, but just human rights violations that are existing in current country are systemic. They come from a long line of systemic failures and creations and so forth. And I think we're going to have to redress that. And that's a difficult conversation to have, because everyone has different ideas of what that looks like, what that means. Many believe abolish the entire system and recreate a new one. And others believe actually maybe we can shift the current state as it is in a different direction if ourselves, the grown youth, are given a chance to sit in those seats of power and allow the older generation to just take a bit of a rest, because I feel like a lot of times when they're making decisions, it's based on their own experiences, which may have carried from the past. And we have fresher eyes, and we see a different future. We see a different way that things can move forward, and we're wanting that time. And there's a push and pull in terms of who gets the power and who doesn't, because power is a very, very contentious thing, and it can change people. It really, really does. And so right now, as it sits, we are going to be inheriting a very problematic state and a very problematic system, because unfortunately it's ingrained.
Yeah. But do we allow it to be ingrained, or do we then stand up? If the youth of 1976 could stand up and say, what you're doing is not feeding us, what you're doing is not benefiting us, can we then not stand and say, because there's unemployment, which is causing all this increased crime rates in the country, and we see a lot of young people on the roads begging for food, or you even scared to drive when you see the traffic light going red. You even scared to drive there. You start driving slow because you're thinking you're going to get snatched and grabbed, and that is okay in the society. No one in the community right now would actually say, because they stole next door, let's go look for that person. They're scared. They're scared for their lives.
In the works to the both of you ladies, let me put a spanner in the works and bring this down to even like the sort of the micro levels of society that we play in, right? If we bring it back to our own individual sort of actions, and bring it back to also what Dumelo said about it being subjective. Look at our individual behavior, for instance, on social media, which is primarily a youth-driven space.
Yeah.
And yet there is nobody that has the audacity to call out group behavior from a distance. From the safety of your home, having the ability to call out group behavior and mob mentality on a Twitter, for instance, says a lot about what you will do in your community on a personal level. Right? Because if you can't do it from the safety of your home and say, no, but that is wrong. What you are saying is wrong. How you are attacking somebody is wrong. Like, or you are condoning an action that is wrong, or... How are you then going to do it with Sipho next door, who's in some criminal behavior, let alone how you then going to stand up to the leaders and hold them to task when you yourself can't do it?
Yeah, I think the issue is that we grow up in a society where we like validation.
Yeah.
We grow up in a society where we like being liked. And I think that's where the issue is. I can't say it's wrong to call out if they are taking, let's say, Bitumelo on Twitter. I won't stand up and say, you can't do that, because I'm afraid that I won't be liked. I'll get less followers. I think that's where the issue is. We like social statuses that aren't really there, because that we create the social statuses ourselves.
I actually want to ask Ntsiki, we live in a generation where people are woke. They use the word woke or liberal. Does that affect our ability to then do what we call right, or have morals? Because I mean, look, there was an incident this week with I will not mention names, with a fellow celebrity who had posted specific images, and she had felt liberated. And somebody else would say, look, this was not appropriate. And whereas somebody else would then say, listen, she must do what she wants. She's a woman. She can do whatever she wants. Where do we draw the line? Is it woke? What's causing us not to do right? Is it woke generation? Is it the liberal? What is it exactly that, is pushing us in a direction where we don't seem like we're doing right as young people?
Ntsiki? Did we lose Ntsiki? Oh, we lost Ntsiki. But I don't know, you guys you can answer it.
To try to answer Dumelo, I think it's not a matter of saying because someone posted nude on Twitter. I don't see it as wrong, but someone else could see it as wrong. But in that aspect, what is wrong? Because when we go back to your 18-somethings, people used to walk around naked. Absolutely. And there was nothing wrong with that. Is the Western way of showing up in society the right way of living? See, when it comes to the way of living, the LGBTQI+.
Yes. Yeah.
And polygamy and how I dress as a person. Yeah. I think that's a different type of topic that we can address when it comes to... It would say modesty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think also another question I want to ask is, does it become right because certain people are doing it? Or do we start feeling like it's more comfortable, it's more okay because there's certain people who are doing it? Where does the morality jump in when it comes
I
to
think
that?
Boitumelo is on that. A friend of mine likes to post on Twitter and say, we live a life where everything is subjective.
Yeah.
And everything is circumstantial. And it oftentimes depends on whether or not, like you both have been saying, do I have an affiliation to this person or not? And so I can judge them, and my moral compass will waver in accordance to the circumstance and to the person. But on that note, let's wrap up this conversation here and then take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we continue. And Kaisang is still asking us in this hour that belongs to her. And next we're going to be talking, what legacy will the youth of South Africa, and I guess by extension, the youth of Africa, leave behind? Feel free to jump into our conversation with, of course, our co-presenters on the usual lines of communication via our WhatsApp, or of course you can call us, or alternatively, social media is also available.
Tweet at SAfm Radio and at Bridget Masinga. You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on this Youth Day. Coming to you live from Auckland Park, and we've got our co-host joining us for the special broadcast, Nkaiseng Mukweli, who curated the first hour of the show. And we also have Boitumelo Lipoko joining us, and she curated the second hour of conversation of the show today. A lot of the heavy lifting laying squarely on their shoulders, representing the largest demographic in South Africa on this Youth Day. And setting the agenda. We've got some of the usual programming coming up a little bit later, so we've got very little time for this conversation. But you threw the question out, okay, saying, what legacy will the current youth leave behind? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's a build-up from the first topic on choosing right even when the odds against you. And with doing that, what legacy are we going to leave behind? I think legacy is something that we always talk about in a group setting. What legacy am I going to leave behind for my kids? What legacy am I going to leave behind for my community? What steps will the next generation take from me when I leave? And I think what we took from the youth of 1986 is not being afraid to stand up for what you believe in, and not being afraid to stand up against authority, even though they are more superior than you, not being afraid to stand up against them. So what legacy as our generation, what are we going to leave behind? I'm not really motivated by the youth that we are today, although some are doing great. Some are doing great things. Some are speaking up. Some are confident. But we don't have something that we stand for as the youth.
Okay, so I asked this question yesterday. We were having conversations to go. The youth of today, though being affected by many economic, social, and political factors and circumstance, seem to me as though there's no one unifying clarion call. Whereas the 1976 agenda was set against one issue. You know what I mean? There was one issue that made the youth take to the streets on the back of apartheid on that day. Yeah. And I asked the question yesterday, and I'm going to ask it to you again. In writing the legacy for your generation, then who defines what that one issue is for y'all at a singular time? What's that African adage? The best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
What is the current burning thing in our community right now, or in the society? I think it's unemployment. There's a huge rate of unemployment, and it continues to increase. And it's not that the people are not willing to work. There are no jobs. And some leave the country because of safety for their financial safety, or for their families. And I think what we should be standing up for, from our leaders, is to say to them, there is unemployment in our country, and how do we curb it as a country or as the youth? Because they're going to die one day, and they're going to leave us with all this mess that's going on. Today in the Val, the Premier is there trying to give people jobs or job applications. And you see thousands of youth standing outside who are desperate for work. And the next thing they will do is loot because there's no jobs. The next thing they will do is steal because there's no jobs. And that's creating a ripple effect that is not sustainable for the country as itself, because no one will want to invest in South Africa. No one would want to take a stake in South Africa because of the state of the country that it is in. Yeah. When you look at the youth that was before us, they fought for something that liberated us today. We are here because of what they fought for. And what are we fighting for? What will we leave for our kids? Will my kid look for employment? Will they be able to start off something on their own and not be scared that someone is going to come tomorrow and loot it?
So how do you guys then galvanize towards this legacy? Because if we're asking your question of, what legacy are we leaving behind, how do you then galvanize towards it?
I actually think I'm actually very proud of the youth of today, and I'll tell you why. I think it doesn't have to be a social question per se as to what are we fighting for, but I think more what makes me more excited about the youth for today is that they are fully themselves. They are fully engulfed in what they want to do. They fully study what they want to do. They are in occupations that they want to be in. They are in relationships that they want to be in. And I think maybe sometimes that is enough. Like the fact that you are fighting in a society that expects so much of you, but you are fully yourself. You can be yourself. And I mean, we look at young people, they call them 2000, right? Those people are unapologetic. If they want to do forex trading and they don't want to go to school, that's exactly what they're going to do. If they want to do fashion, they're going to do that. And maybe sometimes just us fighting for a cause might not necessarily be the legacy. I think just being the idea that we're living in a world where we can fully just be entrenched in being ourselves. I think that somewhat like,
so you reckon that's your legacy? I
think we can. Yes, I think that could. That's definitely our legacy. We are young. We're gifted. We're black. We're unapologetic. We are in corporate spaces. We are making decisions. We're doing quite a lot that the youth of 1976 wasn't doing.
Let me throw the spanner in the works then, because if if you are in agreement to some degree, Ngaiseng, or if you challenge what Boitumelo has just said, a lot of the youth of 1976, a lot of the youth prior, the generations prior who were youth at a particular point, will say that this generation reaps the reward on the back of people literally dying to gain you that freedom and that liberty to self-express. And a lot of that generation of, parents, your grandparents, feel slighted to some degree because it's not valued in their eyes. It's we fought and we literally died for you to be able to self-express. Your version of self-expressing as a collective, the perception is you are AMA 2000 of social media, where you take nothing seriously and everything is for granted.
Yeah. Because you see, when we talk about the economic landscape of our country or what we're going through as a country, we only talk about it on Twitter. We never see anyone march to the union building to say...
You don't vote.
Yes, we don't vote. We don't march to the union building as the youth of 1976 did. We don't march to the police station to say, you're not doing your job. This is what you should be doing. I think what I'm passionate about is unemployment and seeing people on the robots on the edge of committing a crime. It's not okay.
Yeah.
And it's because we are not going to leave a legacy that would benefit my kid. I would want my child to leave South Africa if I'm not here for their safety, which is something that's not right. I'm South African. I should be proud of where I come from. And also that speaks to me. What legacy am I leaving for them to carry forward with? What will they say? My mom marched to the union building and, unemployment was nothing to be talked about. When you look at other countries, unemployment is 12% or 21%, as we're sitting on 33%. It's bad. It's something that we should be standing up for, and if it means that the government should be changed, we should change it. We should stand for a cause and not be ashamed of what we're standing up for.
You know what and I know that Boitumelo said she's going to be devil's advocate, and I'm mindful of the time that we need to be out of this conversation in a minute. But what I'm interested in sort of the views that the both of you are putting out there is the fact that in silos, there's been great movements that have come out of this youth.
Absolutely.
Fees Must Fall, Total Shutdown, which in large was driven by millennials, but the youth galvanized behind it, right? In silos, there's been moments of pride. There's that nation-shifting moment where you play an integral role and the youth, the perception and what we see has not. Even the simplest thing, before we can get to the issues of economics, the simplest thing, get up, go vote. If you have an issue with the leaders and the government at play, get up, stand in that box and put a cross somewhere, anywhere. You'll choose not to.
Or start our own party if there's no one to vote for.
You'll have plenty of people, but that I don't even, you see, we challenge that and say, but when you say there's no one to vote for, there are so many parties for you to vote for.
I think the story is not a party per se; it's the person, and unfortunately, the party rallies behind a specific individual, and young people find themselves where they have the information. The information that they have is that they have to support a specific party, which rallies against somebody which they do not maybe want to rally after. So maybe that's where the problem lies, and maybe if we were voting for individuals as opposed to political parties, maybe that would be a different conversation.
I don't know. Lay youth, guys said, lay youth, young stressor in so many ways. Lay youth.
Do you see us leaving any legacy behind for those coming? Besides the fashion, besides the confidence that we have?
I mean, I think whether it is a collective legacy of a nation or it is a legacy of an individual, a legacy is something that's defined in retrospect. A legacy is something that people give onto you because of your repetitive, consistent action. You know what I mean? So I feel that it is going to be an interesting history that is penned down about this youth, because on the one hand, as you both have said, you'll enjoy great liberties and, great many things come from that. But there's also a great many responsibility.
Yeah.
And there are a large number of you that are up to task and taking that on and realizing dreams and pushing boundary and doing all kinds of things. However, there's also an overwhelming voice that says something is missing in getting y'all to recognize that in this moment, you are the change that you need to see.
Yeah.
In this moment, as a collective of over 60% of the population, this is your moment to grab and do something really dynamic. And if you don't do it in 2024, I don't know if you would have missed the moment.
Yeah.
Because you'll miss the moment a couple of years ago. And if you don't do it in 2024,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yep.
The show continues, the full circle, with my two guests this afternoon. Let's take a quick Nalibali break, and then we'll come back and the conversation continues on the other side of 2.
Telkom VS Gaming is bringing gaming to life in a way that you have never experienced before. The second season of VS Gaming Weekly is here. This time it is bigger and better. Join hosts Okay Wasabi and Sibun Banza as they shine a spotlight on the world of gaming to bring viewers everything from gaming news, the latest tech, tournaments, players' profiles, and celebrity interviews. Get the latest in gaming news and trends from That Freaking Geek, as well as tips and tricks from some of South Africa's favorite pro gamers. Don't miss VS Gaming Weekly every Friday at 3 p.m. on SABC 1, with repeats every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on SABC 2, as well as Fridays at 10 p.m. and Saturdays at 11 a.m. on SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hey, buddy, it's me, your car. Wow, we've been through a lot over the years, eh? Many roads, many towns, so many memories. But listen, it's time to move on, eh? Go and get yourself a fresh new ride. But just promise me one thing. Let me go the right way. Let me go to We Buy Cars. We Buy Cars, the best way to sell your car by far.
SABC 1 has made a few changes to the primetime schedule. On Fridays, Deal or No Deal South Africa at 7:30 p.m. Tune into Ikaslam at 9 p.m. Kung Fu Movies at 9:30 p.m. Tune into SABC 1, Mzansi, for sure.
SAfm, leading the conversation through the month of June.
This year, we are celebrating Youth Month under the theme Accelerating Youth Economic Emancipation for a Sustainable Future. As we commemorate the massacre of school children during the Soweto Uprising of 1976, we also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. The students laid down their lives for the right to equal education. We salute them. Hashtag Youth Month on SAfm.
SAfm.
Friends, and welcome to Nali Bali. How was school? I hope you had a great day at school today. Learning about the seasons helps us to understand the passage of time and teaches us about change. While some seasonal changes are more obvious, like change in weather, there are more important subtle differences related to each season, like changes in the type of food that is available. For an example, in some parts of the world, winter means shorter days, cooler temperatures, and little or no plant growth. Would you say you know and understand seasons? Well, come with us to the Storyland as we listen to today's story, which is a book-dash story called Searching for the Spirit of Spring, created by Musa Mahlaba, Selina Murulane, and Sibusiso Mkwanazi. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and dance. The winter cold had passed. Spring was coming to Nkanyezi's village. Soon the villagers would gather to celebrate the new season. Nkanyezi looked forward to the spring festival more than any other day in the year. One warm morning, Nkanyezi overheard two village elders talking about the festival.
The people of Ndlovu have lost their spirit of celebration.
One villager said,
"How can we have a spring festival in a village that has forgotten how to celebrate?"
Nkanyezi was worried.
"Oh, how will the sun shine again unless we sing to wake it from its winter slumber?"
She asked herself. Nkanyezi thought for a long time.
Oh, I must find what we have lost. I must go in search of things that will bring back the spirit of celebration to my village,
she said. The elders gave Nkanyezi their blessing for the journey. They gave her a bag to carry the things she would find. Nkanyezi was afraid, but she believed she could succeed. Nkanyezi walked all day. She hiked up a hill and down into a valley. She sailed across the great river and climbed between the sharp rocks. She marched across the plains until she reached the shadow of the Red Mountains. As night was closing in, Nkanyezi arrived at the village of patterns and colors as she had never seen before. She told the village elders about the journey to bring back the spirit of celebration to her people. The mother of this tribe gave Nkanyezi a gift.
"With love, we give to you this paint to restore color to the village that has gone down,"
said the mother of the tribe.
"Oh, thank you for your gift,"
said Nkanyezi and put the paint in her bag. Early the next morning, she went on her way again, excited with this gift of color. Nkanyezi walked all day through a vast forest of giant trees. As the sky became too dark for her to see, she heard the sound of beating drums. She hurried towards the drumming, feeling the spirit of dance coming to her tired feet. Nkanyezi found herself in the village of Bubesi. People were sitting around a fire, drumming and singing. She had never heard such wonderful music. She told the village elders about her journey to bring back the spirit of celebration to her people. The Bubesi invited her to rest and stay the night. In the morning, the chief called on Nkanyezi.
"My child, here is a special drum. It plays a new song every time you beat it,"
he said.
"Oh, thank you very much, Chief, for your gift,"
said Nkanyezi and put the drum in her bag. She went on her way again, delighted with the gift of music and dance. On the third day of her journey, as she passed a field of fat cows, her nose started to tingle. An aroma tickled her taste buds and her mouth started to water. She followed the scent and arrived in a village to find people standing over steaming pots of stew. This tribe was famous for its fish, and Nkanyezi had never tasted such flavors before. After she had eaten her fill, she told the village elders about her journey to bring back the spirit of celebration to her people. The next day, the Council of Cooks gave her a secret spice blend.
"Our daughter, with these spices, happy tummies are guaranteed. We give you the gift of good food,"
they said.
Yum. Thank you very much for your gift,"
said Nkanyezi and put the spices in her bag. She knew she had everything she needed. With new energy, she started the long journey back to the village of Ndlovu. When she arrived home, the villagers gathered around her to hear of her adventures. She told them the tales of what she had seen, heard, and eaten. Then she opened her bag to share the gifts given. The people rejoiced to receive these treasures. Through the generosity of others and the courage of Nkanyezi, the villagers again found the color, song, and dance in their lives, and so the spirit of celebration was restored in the village of Ndlovu. And so we come to the end of another Nalibali story time. Today's story was called Searching for the Spirit of Spring, created by Musa Mahlaba, Selina Mrulane, and Sibusiso Mkwanazi. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nalibali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nalibali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nalibali, it starts with a story.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is the Full Circle on this Youth Day on SAfm, leading the conversation. By the way, we are live, so if you are on YouTube, you can definitely stream the show there. Alternatively, you can also find it on Facebook and have a look to see and put the faces to the names that are driving the agenda this afternoon. We've got lots of conversations still to come in the final hour of the show. For now, though, we're going to catch up on some world news. A lot is going on the tarmacs in Poland, in Warsaw. I don't know if that situation has been resolved in the last 2 hours or so, but I doubt it. Greg Groos is coming through with the news at 2.
Independent and impartial. This is SAfm News.
Thank you. In this news update, Mashatile hails the youth of 1976 and Ramaphosa visits Bucha in Ukraine. Good afternoon. The Deputy President Paul Mashatile says South Africa remains grateful to the youth of 1976 for their contribution to the country's social and political transformation. He was giving the keynote address at the official Youth Day celebrations in the Mangaung Metro in the Free State. The day marks the uprising of students against Afrikaans as a medium of instruction by students in Soweto 47 years ago. The Deputy President says their commitment to ending apartheid helped pave the way for a more equal education system.
Because of them, the youth in our schools are not compelled to acquire an inferior education in the language that has been imposed on them. In honor of that generation, we have developed a system that is conducive to learning. As a result, many students are now able to choose the careers of their choice. Young people now have the prospect of going to higher education training institutions which are supported by the state. Moreover, the youth of 1976 fought for their political freedom. Now we must fight for economic freedom.
Meanwhile, young exhibitors at the National Youth Day commemoration in Bloemfontein say opportunities are available, yet many young people still don't have access. They say they want to take advantage of opportunities presented to them and empower themselves and others.
I'm selling and manufacturing traditional soft porridge called warona. The taste of warona was hard to master because I emphasized on giving it a natural taste, unlike the so-called mutoho you find in the markets, which is nothing compared to lishel mixed with chemicals.
Perfect. Okay, we as Active Education, we target social issues through education, and what we are offering to our youth, which is like, that's why we're celebrating the Youth Day today, we're offering short courses and 1-year courses for the learners to be on the physical education program so that they can
President Cyril Ramaphosa and other African heads of state have visited a mass gravesite in Bucha near the Ukrainian capital Kyiv, where invading Russian troops are alleged to have committed war crimes. The site is located behind the St. Andrew's Orthodox Church, where over 450 civilians who died during the initial stages of the Russia-Ukraine conflict are buried. President Ramaphosa and his Senegalese counterpart are heading a peace mission to Kyiv today and St. Petersburg in Russia tomorrow. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya.
The president arrived in Kiev safely by train, along with other heads of states and government who were part of the African leaders' peace mission to Ukraine and Russia.
Meanwhile, after almost 24 hours stuck at the Warsaw airport, a group of local journalists and the almost 100 SAPS and National Defence Force members will now proceed to Rozoba for the second leg of President Ramaphosa's visit to Ukraine and then Russia. They were denied entry into Poland when authorities said they couldn't allow them with weapons and ammunition meant to protect the president on his mission to Kyiv, but their flight has now been cleared to proceed. Finally, back home, and residents in some parts of Polokwane in Limpopo have been without water for almost 3 days in succession. Municipal spokesperson Tipa Silala says they've dispatched water tankers to alleviate the problem. He's attributed the problem to reduced pumping from a water plant by Lepelle Northern Water.
The municipalities are aware that most areas are still experiencing low pressure in terms of water supply, but we are doing everything in our power to ensure that our residents do get water. We will, in the meantime, supply water through water tankers as a temporary relief measure. The low pressure challenge is caused by a reduced pumping from the Oliphant Sport high lift pump.
The top story, the Deputy President says South Africa remains grateful to the youth of 1976 for their contribution to the country's social and political transformation. That's SAfm News. I'm Greg Khos.
If you're active on social media and love SAfm, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAfm page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAfm, leading the conversation.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
I cited debates stemming from our first hour and filtering to off-air with my two young co-hosts that are joining me today. We have a special broadcast on this Youth Day. As you heard over the last couple of weeks, we were inviting young South Africans to pitch us a topic, agenda or two or three that they'd like to put on the table for their respective shows of choice. And we've got Boitumelo Liboka joining me, and of course Nkaiseng Mukweli, both of the ladies coming from the Val, and both of them driving the agenda today. That was Zakes Bantwini, by the way, coming through with Osama Ngazengaisho in such a very Caucasian way. The song is Osama, and it's Zakes Bantwini and Kasango released this one in 2021. Beautiful song. He went on, obviously, he's had such a brilliant run over the last 2 years, nabbing himself that Grammy Award with the collaboration that he did with Vota Kalaman and the vocalist, I'm forgetting her name now, Unomncebo. There we go. And just going on to have like a really, really great, I think it's been the culmination of many years of hard work for Zakes. He's been behind some of South Africa's most really prolific writers, musicians, producers, and he's really helped people catapult their individual careers to stardom, and at the same time simultaneously building his. So it's been wonderful to see him get all the fruits that he so richly deserves. Second hour of the show, the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. We are not ignoring you. All our comms lines are open, but we also do understand that it is a public holiday and perhaps you are preoccupied, and we are just keeping you company as you go about the rest of your afternoon. Funny enough, I actually got a message from Tiamo on Twitter who says, good afternoon, ladies. Super cool show, I must say. My point of view regarding the first topic, we're doing the same thing every year, a talk shop. If you go around the country today, you'll find the youth indulging in alcohol because it's a lifestyle. Adults likewise. Absolutely. We are just in a weird conundrum. So for the second hour of the show, Boitumelo Liboka has curated that hour. And we're looking, by way of our first conversation, we're looking at the fear of commitment around youth or amongst the youth. Young adults desiring to marry greatly have dwindled over the years. I don't know if that's statistically true or not. Perhaps it's a perception. Divorce rates are very high in the country. They are really high, but I don't know if that correlates with marriage intake or not. We'll have to get that data at another point. But this is your topic.
Yes, it is. So I found that a lot of young people do not necessarily care for marriage. And look, like you say, within the times, the desire to get married has kind of dwindled. I find it I find it a lot amongst my friends. I find it a lot amongst other young people that I meet. I find it amongst young professionals, and especially when it comes to women. Like in particular, the need to necessarily be in a marriage setup where we go to home affairs and you align yourself to me legally on a document does not seem to be a thing anymore. Where in a society where I can stay with you without us being married, in a society where we can do partnership things without us being married, in a society where we can, practically do things which married people do without that commitment. The need to really go to home affairs and say, listen, let's get married has really declined from what I have seen. And I find that a lot of older people still want to ask you, so when are you guys getting married? Especially if you've been with somebody for some time, they still want to ask you, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? But I find that the youth do not really want to answer that question. So hence me coming up with this topic, is there really the societal standard? It's not even a commitment thing. Should we really be removing that societal standard for marriage when it comes to young people?
Let's jump in. Leroy Dow, who's a relationship coach. Leroy, how are you doing this afternoon?
Bridget, I'm a bit fluish, but I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Thanks for the disclosure. We wouldn't have known otherwise.
No, I'm just in case my voice acts up on me.
No. I completely understand why you told us. So Boitumelo puts across an interesting topic. In as far as young people and their approach to the institution of marriage in the traditional sense as how we understand it. And I don't know, you're a relationship coach. Are you sensing that this current crop of young South Africans are straying away from institutionalized marriage?
It's in twofold. Number one, I'll agree to disagree. The marriage institution in and of itself has nothing wrong in it. The problem is that we prepare ourselves for everything else but marriage. You go before you drive a car. There's a process of going to write a learner's test, and you pass that test, and you are taken for the actual driving test. So there's a whole lot of preparation that goes into you being behind the wheel to make sure that you are not a menace when you get on the road, that you are qualified to actually handle this automobile. But we don't see that when it comes to marriage. Just because you feel it and just because it feels good, then you feel it's okay for you to tie the knot. The reality is that things don't end wrong, they normally start wrong. So a whole lot of people do not understand the purpose that marriage entails. And Miles Monroe said it well, that when purpose is not understood, abuse is inevitable. And this is what we are seeing right now.
So,
and the reality that was, yeah.
Leroy, let me jump in here and ask you, Uguti, would you then say that is how the institution has been modeled, by previous generations for this generation, or even by the current millennials who are, in essence, either very young parents to very young 20-year-olds or older siblings to 20-year-olds? Do you then think it is the modeling of the institution that has somehow influenced what Boitumelo puts forward, the reluctance to get into it?
No, because if the modeling was the problem, then we would have had the same cases of divorce back in the day, the same way we do now. The issue here is that we have produced a generation of people who are promiscuous, a generation of people who do not have a high standard of living a right life in an individual sense.
Oh, I see Boitumelo's eyebrows going up. Jump in, Boitumelo.
No, it's fine. So in an instance where people are promiscuous and they do what they want to do when they want to do it and whenever they feel like doing it without taking in the consequences thereof. I mean, I'll make a practical example now. 80% of the people who are going to be in a relationship context or are going to get married anytime from now are going to find themselves dealing with the issue of blending families. Because the reality is people who are coming into marriage or relationships now are people who come in with kids. And we have created an abnormal situation and we want it to function in a normal standard. It's not going to be possible.
Let me challenge you, Leroy. Let me challenge you, because I think once we start defining what normal, and I use that word very loosely, quote unquote, what normal is for society, we're treading on very thin waters. What is normal for you is not normal for someone else. What is a normal construct for you is not a normal construct for someone else. And so normal cannot be defined by sensuguti. Normal is that you are going to be childless, whether man or female, childless, virginal, having not had, sexual intercourse or had limited partners. What do the youth call it? Body count.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily normal, because who defines what is normal and abnormal?
So are we saying that the effects of this, the actions of this, the behavior does not have effects to them? Is that what you want to say?
No, I'm not saying behavior does not have effects. I'm saying once we start throwing out once we start trying to prescribe what is normal for someone, we are erring on a very thin line, because we do not base these things on the same barometer.
Let me ask Leroy this question. Leroy, if I'm able to commit to one partner and I'm able to live with this partner and maybe have even certain arrangements in our living situation where we both contribute financially, we both know each other's families, why is there still a social expectation for young people then to still get married?
It all boils down to the origin of marriage. And then I think the societal standard is attached to the customary viewpoint of what marriage is, and you also have the religious viewpoint of what marriage is. And then we will always be held accountable towards this particular world views or this particular societal views. And unfortunately, a marriage comes to signify a commitment. Yes, you can have a situation whereby you're staying with a person and you are all contributing towards the livelihood of that particular model or structure, and it works for you. But if it works for you, then let like you guys are saying, then let us not crush the ones who want to solidify this particular structure with the customary processes of getting married and labeling that particular institution as marriage, as opposed to just two people living in the same place and calling it a relationship. So what works for them might not work. What's right for you might not be right for the other person, as you are saying. But the ultimate issue here is that we cannot live a life whereby I keep attaching myself to different women and I call it the freedom of sexual expression and I call it my freedom of choice, and not looking at the consequences that these choices give birth to. That would be a careless conversation not to have, or that would be a careless way of handling things. The reality here is that, I mean, you just stated now that you go around, the celebration of Youth Month as it stands is driven by alcohol, is driven by, so you wonder, what is it that the youth of today are celebrating as opposed to what the youth of 1976
Leroy,
fought for?
Can I jump in your mouth there? Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and continue the conversation. It's just gone 2:20.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Not sure if it's just flu, COVID, or something else? Good news! You can still get your COVID jab or booster this winter for added protection. Call the National Health Hotline on 0800 029 999 or WhatsApp help to 0600 123 456.
South Africa. Your all-time favorite is back with yet another season. DJ Shelley continues to dish out the music clues, while Emo Adams spurs the contestants on. It's all about music, fun, and a whole lot of laughter on Noot vir Noot, Wednesdays in our 7 p.m. entertainment slot, only on SABC2.
SAfm Youth Day TakeOver.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAfm, leading the conversation, and of course joined in studio by my co-hosts, co-hosting today,
Semokwele
and Vitumela Luboko.
And of course, we were in the middle of a conversation driven by Boitumelo. And, Leroy Tau is our relationship expert that's joining us on the phone. And Leroy, I will give you this in how you sort of phrased as you went into the break. In how you phrased behavior patterns, social behavior patterns that have consequences, right? I am a strong believer in consequences and consequence management. So I completely concede and agree to the point that all action have an equal reaction to it, right? All choices have a consequence to it. And one must be cognizant of that when moving in life, whatever your choices are. You know, if you choose to be sexually liberated and, you know, do what you want to do and how you want to do with whomever, whenever you want to, also be cognizant that there might be consequences that affect your life and someone else's life somewhere down the line. You know what I mean? That is very much a valid point. And do you want those consequences come somewhere down the line? But the question still remains that you've posed, Boitumelo.
Should it still remain a societal standard for young people? I mean, Leroy, here's the truth. I know people who are married, right? And they are less married than people who are actually married. I know people who have been in relationships but they don't stay together, for instance. I know people who have been married for years but they don't communicate. And I find that they are relationships or people who are in relationships where they have not solidified, as you put it, that commitment in terms of a marriage setup or a marriage institution. But they do way better than people who took the vows in public, in the community space, in front of their families. They just happen to just do so much more and so much better.
Yeah, I think Bitumela goes back to what Leroy was saying. What is the purpose of you getting married? What is the purpose of you entering that relationship? If the purpose is not clear, then you don't have a vision for your marriage or your relationship. Then you will see a lot of people who live in unhappy marriages. You'll see a lot of people who live in happy relationships, even if they are not married. So if you have a clear vision and a purpose for your marriage, you'll live in
it's not defined by marriage itself.
It's defined by the two who enter into the contractual agreement of we are getting married. Marriage is an institution. We enter into this institution together because we agree and we have a purpose for this institution that we're trying to build together.
Bringing you back to the essence of your question then, how does that then affect, how you perceive marriage? Because obviously, and Leroy alluded to it at the beginning of the conversation, obviously if you are seeing amongst your peers that there is a reluctance to get into this institution, it's then driven by many things that formulate that opinion for you to say, maybe this thing is not for me, or maybe this thing is not the right thing. Hold on to that thought. Let's just take a voice note and then we come back with Leroy.
One of the reasons that we're not getting married or not so keen to get married also is that the older women tell us not to get married. We see it from our mothers, our grandmothers, whatever they went through in those marriages. That's why I'm just like, why am I getting married if it's hotla? One of the reasons.
It's a valid point because, the previous generation will tell you. We hear it from our grandparents as millennials as well. They'll be like, I don't know why. Y'all don't need a man. Leroy? Leroy Tao?
It's hi.
Yes.
Like it's amazing how the only time we talk about any time safe landings are never reported. Only plane crashes are reported. And if you follow the stories of plane crashes, you would automatically convince yourself to say that being in the air is more riskier than being on the ground. But then you find out planes are the most safest form of a mode of transport. What am I trying to say? The idea of people failing in marriage has been so advertised and has been so put in our face that we forget that there are people who are actually doing well in marriages. There are people who are celebrating 8 years in marriage. There are people who are celebrating. It's just the failed ones who make it seem like the institution is not working. The reality here is that you have people who are ready for the wedding day, but not prepared to build the process of growing and becoming one in the process of being married. So you want us to argue a situation whereby people who don't want to grow, people who do not want to build, people who do not know why they are getting into relationships in the first place, people which will translate to why they don't know why they are getting married and their marriage is failing. And we use that as a barometer and we say marriage is failing, while it is the individuals in the marriage who did not know why they are getting into the institution to even begin with. It's worse because you have single people aspiring to be in relationships. And when you ask a person, why do you want to be in a relationship? And most of those responses are driven by loneliness. They are driven by a sexual desire. They are driven by the idea of wanting to fit into the Instagram model of having a power couple hashtag next to the picture. But the idea behind why you want to be with someone is not understood by the ones who say, I love you. So we normally say, I love you because we want to fill a void. We say, I love you because we want to feel like we are needed. We say, I love you because we want to become part of a particular trend. But when you look at the end result, hence I said, things don't end wrong. They normally start wrong. Yeah. When you say you want to be in a relationship, what drives you? What do you know the dynamics? Like I said now, as much as people have drowned, you still have people swimming because they understand the dynamics behind the swimming and the skills required to do the swimming process. So you have people getting into marriage who have no clue and no idea what they are doing, have not gone through individual development, have not gone through...
We hear the passion. We hear the passion. And we don't want your message to be lost because, at the same time, as much as we are involved in and I think anytime you talk about romance or, certain topics and constructs, there is going to be inevitable passion, but we also don't want I never want anybody, because I think, and Leroy, you are an expert in this, obviously, as a relationship coach. I never want people to walk away from a conversation feeling as though, especially when it comes to social, personal, interpersonal topics and themes, feeling and reflecting back and feeling as though they were being lashed at. And I think we can all probably agree, and you two look like you'll never have been married. I said, okay. Nkai Seng is married. There we go. Nkai Seng. I don't know if it was decorative or so I erred on the side of caution. I think we can all agree that there are very many reasons why relationships end. Yeah. The same way there are very many reasons why people get into relationships and ultimately make commitments. And for me, languaging is very important. Not every relationship that ends is a failure, or is ended in a failure, or was gotten into for wrong reason, or without prior thought and context and understanding of the gravity. In fact, I would argue to say that most people, even to your point, Boitumelo, about the reluctance of your generation, is because that consciousness, going back to our first hour of conversation, is being observed. Yeah. That consciousness to sit and weigh your options that are available and true to you are being observed. So most marriages, I would argue to say, on principle, people do the best that they know how to in a situation and ended, but they weren't a failure.
That is true.
I would argue to say.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, look, as Leroy was saying in the beginning, it's a personal choice. It's your choice. However, should it be a social construct? I think I leave it to the listener to
What do you say, guys? I mean, you're married.
And I'm enjoying my marriage.
Yes.
I think we should leave people to decide what they want to do. Yeah. If people want to get married, they should enter into this institution knowing what comes with marriage. They should go for counseling before they get married so that they are prepared on what the challenges of marriage that come. It is true that it's not easy in marriage, but when you have the same purpose, you're able to tackle the challenges that come into your marriage together. And there are certain things that you should not stand for. You should have
boundaries.
You should have boundaries in a marriage. You can't stand for someone who's going to cheat and bring you diseases in the home. That's definitely something you should not stand for. And I think our parents or our grandparents stood for abuse in a marriage. I think that's why they would then say, don't get married, because someone would come home and beat them up each and every day. And that's something our youth saw growing up. They saw our parents getting beaten up. I saw my dad getting married to different women, and but still, I still aspired for marriage because I wanted to be in a home and raise my children in a home and build something with my partner. And yeah, I think we should leave people to choose what they want to do.
Yeah. We've got Tim in. Alex, how are you doing, Tim? Tim is still offlining there. There he is. Tim, how are you doing?
Right, and you?
We are good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to contribute to the topic.
Yes, sir.
It's the topic that is close to my heart. Yeah, I just wanted to concur with what Leroy is saying, that most of the time people take a marriage as an institution where people go in there to fail. So I'm qualified to comment because I've been married for 38 years now. So what I'm saying is that, people have their own choices, as you have been mentioning, and we must not condemn their choices. But what I'm saying is that, we have lost the essence of marriage, what marriage is all about. That is why we are having so many divorces, so many failing relationships, so many marriages that go into the drain. So in short, I want to say that if we can go back to the essence of why God wanted marriage to be there and who constituted, if you have a problem with a BMW, you won't take it to Mercedes. So if you have a problem with the institution that was started by God, then we must go back to the origin and say, what is it that God has started and what are the do's and don'ts? Now,
that's a whole nother conversation on its own, Tim, out in Alex. But thank you for your contribution. And 38 years, that's no easy feat. And maybe to Leroy's point and to Boitumelo's ask is, do you think maybe, Leroy, also there is an essence of, Michelle Obama spoke about this as well, there's an essence of quitting too quickly. Giving up too quickly, not understanding that maybe the good days also come with the bad days. And that can also maybe in some way affect how this generation see it. It's like, oh, you guys give up on it, so why should we then try? Leroy?
I think, like I said, our generation is too quick to quit, too quick to leave because of the abundance of options that are available. That even in a place where you've made a choice, you still have an option outside the choice you've made. So the reality here, like the previous column alluded, Hori, I mean, marriage is not a man idea. It has always been a God idea. And if you want to remove marriage from that it was instituted to function in, you're automatically going to have problems. And we can't shy away. I mean, I wrote a book titled Confessions of a Broken Man, and I spoke how from an early age of my life, I used sex to numb the inadequacies inside of me. Little did I know that I was getting myself in a habit of not being able to attach myself to a committed relationship, because a committed relationship will require growth from me. It will require accountability from me. So a lot of young people don't want to engage in a process of growth, in a process of becoming better. In fact, when we talk about becoming better, we talk about getting a job that pays well or driving that nice car. We think those things contribute to you being a better individual. While our mental health is decaying, while our behavior, our ability to control ourselves where sex is concerned is decaying. And then now when we can't function in relationships, we want to say, remember, if you can't excel in relationships because of the habits that you got yourself used to, you need to then put out options to say, mara, now liberal. Now I need to be with different people for me to be happy. Because you have failed in the self-control analysis of what you ought to become. And the best version of you was compromised because you don't want to grow. And that's the conversation maybe we need to have.
Let's take a voice note at this moment.
Hi, Leroy. You are my guy.
Most women don't realize that the way they live, the way they behave, they are not marriage material. That is why you'll find that most men opt to have a relationship rather than being engaged in a marriage institution. So Leroy, heads up, very good conversation, my brother. Thank you, bye.
I don't think that's what exactly Leroy was saying, Leroy Tao. Not to speak for you, but I don't, I don't particularly subscribe, and we will not use particular words to label opinion, because all opinions are valid based out of people's experiences. But I don't think that's what you were saying.
I don't think so.
No.
I think Leroy mentioned something very pertinent in this. I think aspirations also is another thing. I find that the aspirations of the youth have become different, and I don't know how you feel about this, Leroy. I found that yes, having a car is more of a priority than getting married. Having a place that I call my own, or an asset that I call my own, has become more of a priority than having a lavish wedding. And I see this a lot with a lot of young people who would rather just take their money and maybe use it for investing in something else as opposed to a wedding per se, or even just marriage per se. So do you think that aspirations then play a role in how we then view marriage as young people?
Leroy, can I put a spanner in the works and say you've literally got 30 seconds to answer that?
I think here's the thing. I mean, your aspiration to have a place of your own, have a car, and have a job. I would not classify or define that as you being independent. I will just simply call it you being responsible. And then we wanna attach independence in places and functions that are just responsible. I'm just being a responsible adult. You ought to get yourself in a place where you can be self-sufficient within yourself and be able to take care of yourself. But to conclude the matter, if you are not going to subscribe to godly standards of why marriage was instituted in the first place, you have no reason, I don't know, to be entertaining that particular marriage setup. Yeah.
Leroy Tao, thank you so much for your contribution this afternoon. I definitely need it just amongst the four of us here in studio. Let's take a break.
Telkom VS Gaming is bringing gaming to life in a way that you have never experienced before. The second season of VS Gaming Weekly is here. This time it is bigger and better. Join hosts OK Wasabi and Sibumbanza as they shine a spotlight on the world of gaming to bring viewers everything from gaming news, the latest tech, tournaments, players' profiles, and celebrity interviews. Get the latest in gaming news and trends from That Freaking Geek, as well as tips and tricks from some of South Africa's favorite pro gamers. Don't miss VS Gaming Weekly every Friday at 3 p.m. on SABC 1, with repeats every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on SABC 2, as well as Fridays at 10 p.m. and Saturdays at 11 a.m. on SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
From Khayelitsha to Musina, our money crisscrosses the country, connecting communities. Now, our banknotes and coin look a little different, with upgraded security features and new designs celebrating our heritage. But don't worry, your trusted rands with the new designs and the older ones are still worth the same. So go on, use both with confidence. Our money, our pride. SA Reserve Bank, connecting us.
SABC 1 has made a few changes to the primetime schedule. On Fridays, Deal or No Deal South Africa at 7:30 p.m. Tune into Ikaslam at 9 p.m. Kung Fu Movies at 9:30 p.m. Tune into SABC 1, Mzansi, for sure.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAfm 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
Eyuthendala is in the building.
Okay, let me see. I have a couple of months. It's a couple of months until ngisemncane ngingane phela. Ningangibuyi nginje. Ngingane. Coming up on the show this afternoon, the big developing stories, of course, what happened in Warsaw in Poland. We understand that our journalists are still in Poland. They have been given clearance. However, though, I just spoke to Ndebu Mukwabo, who's going to speak to us just after 3 o'clock. He says that they are still inside the plane, so they haven't been given permission to disembark.
Okay.
But sure, they have the clearance, but not disembark as yet. They're probably going to take a bus to Kyiv, and then there's apparently a flight that's going to take them all the way to St. Petersburg, that is going to be in Russia, where the president will be heading off to. We'll also be speaking, hopefully, to the Department of International Relations with regards to the conversations that are underway, and also negotiations to at least ensure that once the plane leaves, it also leaves with the arms. Because remember that was one of the big things, was that they didn't have the necessary permits.
Yeah.
Although Wally Roda, who is the head of the Presidential Protection Unit, was saying that as far as they're concerned, they have all of the documents, although some of those documents are copies.
Yeah.
So that's one of the conversations that we're having. Still, in relation to Russia, Ukraine, the conversation that we were supposed to have yesterday with the Premier of the Western Cape, Ellen Windy, we're actually going to be having it this afternoon.
I don't need to laugh.
But I want to ask him.
Aldrin.
I want to ask him, what do you think of what's happening currently in?
You're being shady. Aldrin Sampier is coming through at 3 until 6 on Beyond the Headline. And yes, he's also co-hosting today with his own youth co-host presenter. Well, clearly it's just a youth show on Beyond the Headline. He didn't need a co-host because we're youth himself as we continue the conversation on The Full Circle.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Let the bell ring! Miropa Casino will experience an avalanche of punches from 9 bouts during the Power to Youth International Boxing Night. Ayanda Nkosi will cross-question the champion Kaya Busagwe in the SA lightweight title. Meanwhile, Johnson Mutsanani challenges the champ Rofio Mapupa in the Limpopo flyweight title. The Queens of the Ring, SA's Nozi Dube and Adidia Mimu of Malawi, will battle it out in the female junior featherweight division to demonstrate that this is not a ladies' night out. Catch the Limpopo champions, Power to Youth International Boxing Night, on Friday 23 June at 7 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Open fee 124. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Then on SABC 2 at 10:30 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
South Africa, Happy Youth Day on SAfm. With government drawing more young people into the economy, we celebrate Youth Month under this year's theme of accelerating youth economic emancipation for a sustainable future. SAfm, leading the conversation this Youth Day. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
South Africa's brand new National Strategic Plan 2023-2028 for HIV, tuberculosis and sexually transmitted infections has been launched. Thank you to all who made their voices heard by adding comments and suggestions. This important plan will guide the country's response as we work towards ending HIV, TB and STIs as public threats by 2030. This message was brought to you by the South African National AIDS Council, and of course more information on www.sanec.org.za.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
Well, we definitely lived up to the latter part of that liner today. Definitely been having some robust conversation. Always very interesting anytime you talk societal themes that affect us on an interpersonal level. And as we wrap up the show in the last 10 minutes, we are looking at social media and older people. I don't even want to know why you wanted to talk about this or bring this up as a talker. What is your issue with old people on social media?
First of all, old people do not know how to use social media.
Okay, let's define
Let's define
old people.
Okay, so I'm saying anybody who's
As
not
I
to
look
give
at
an
her.
age. So here's the thing, and actually this was my real question. Should we have an age limit when it comes to people using social media? Because, I mean, I found that you find parents doing very odd things on social media.
Answer the ask. Old. What is old?
Okay, so old is anybody who's not the youth. And today I'm
so
talking,
anyone who's not 35?
today I'm talking youth, and I'm supporting the youth, and I'm standing for the
So
youth.
uthi nami youth endala.
You should be off
at
Twitter.
a fabulous 41. I must be off.
You might
Instagram.
Yes, then you might not have to be on TikTok. It might not be
No,
necessary.
I'm not on TikTok. That's
yes.
for, yeah.
So maybe we should define the platform. Let's define it just as TikTok, because maybe that is where the content creation has been happening. And I'm saying, if you are not youth, I am saying stay away.
You know, these children.
Brene Brown with her.
Love Brene.
Yeah, she should not be on TikTok.
She should be on
and her talks.
I mean, look, the talks we can limit it to the talks, but those funny videos.
Okay, what is your issue with people over 35? Because I mean, when she says old people, you know, we skew and frown with people over 35 not being on social media. What is your issue with people over 35?
I find that older users are very enthusiastic. They've become very enthusiastic when it comes to social media. There's a certain excitement that comes with social media. They want to be seen. They post more than they should. It's a lot.
They fought for this.
Thank you.
No. I mean, there's a lot of content that you look at, and this is people's parents, and you're saying, what is this person doing? Like, you cringe. This is someone's parent.
I have no words.
I do not think I'm allowed to even give some handles.
Yes.
But there are certain. I'm sure the listeners agree.
I don't know. We in our final moments. If you do agree, let us know. Our phone lines are open 086-000-2032, or you can hit us up on WhatsApp if you agree with what Boitumelo has just said. That as a youth representative for the youth, she feels that 35 and above should be off social media.
TikTok, to be specific.
It's TikTok, to be specific.
No, you can keep your memories, your pictures, but do not create content. No. Or at least there must be a parameter as to what, there must be do's and don'ts.
So what do you feel is so cringeworthy?
Sheesh.
Give us examples of behavior.
Do you remember that clip? There was a specific gentleman. Tough times lasts.
Yes.
Tough people don't. And then he does that tongue thing. That is someone's father.
And he went viral. He probably made money.
That is the problem.
Out of that.
You know, that's the problem that's the problem. Once they go viral, once the older people go viral, they don't stop.
You are saying come fetch your fathers of social media.
Yes, please, come.
I can't with these young ones.
But they get in the bag, as we say it.
But
for
are
their
they?
family.
Are they?
That guy.
No.
I mean, he was used in many ads. His
Okay.
Tough times don't last, something like that.
Tough people do.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was used in many ads.
So
I'm
you have
sure
no issue with it.
he made money from that. Like,
how would you feel if your parents were on social media?
Well, it's a good thing that my dad was not tech savvy, so.
But she's already defending she's already saying it's a good thing that my dad. Why? Because you know that this is embarrassing.
Are your parents on social media, Boitumelo?
No, luckily not.
Are you sure?
Nobody I know who's old is on social media. And I feel the need to encourage them at this moment if they are
And
listening.
if they were on social media and decided to follow you?
No. First of all, you are not following me. Second of all, no, you are not on social media if I know you. I will gladly, fully, 100% encourage you not to be, because I do not think older people know how to use social media.
But then, should we not educate them on how to use it
Do they
so
need
that they
to
can
be
make
there?
money?
Is this
I mean,
necessary?
young people are making money out of it if they are taught how to use it for their benefit.
No, guys saying just leave the older people, please.
On that very shady note, ladies, thank you so much for joining us, taking time out of your Youth Day. Ordinarily, what would you have been doing as we finish the show? What would you have been doing on Youth Day?
I'd probably be home. They are tiling, we're renovating, so
Okay.
I'd probably be playing with the kids outside.
All right.
Yeah.
You'd be a responsible grown youth.
Yeah, I'd be a parent.
You see, grown youth. And you?
I am going to a braai after this.
The
so
youth that just
I
enjoys
will-
the liberties without the responsibility.
No, I mean, look, we've done the job. We've communicated. We have been informative. Now we braai.
Well,
Now
you
you
see,
party.
in the studio we have the reflection of the two kinds of youth. The one that wants to affect the change, the one that wants to have Pride Day.
And enjoy the benefits.
Enjoy the benefits.
Of the older youth.
Right, Youth Ndala. From myself, Youth Ndala, it is time to make way, and of course from the ladies. It's been a pleasure having you both in studio. And this broadcast, by the way, was done so by our friends who were so generous to ensure that everything went according to plan. Zwane Meat Company out at Orlando West in Soweto. We appreciate you for showing some love on National Youth Day. We are out here to do our respective things that we do on June 16. Aldrin is coming through to keep you company for the rest of the afternoon. He's going to be here with his co-host until 6 o'clock. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again. Have a fantastic week next week. Let me just say now that I will not be with you next week, but I'm sure you'll be in capable hands. We can touch base on social media, though. At Bridget Masinga is where you'll find me on Instagram as well as Twitter. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again, playing out with Sun Al Musician featuring Ami Faku.